The ship came out of nowhere. Captain Park Do-hyun stood on the command deck of Orbital Station 7, watching the massive vessel appear on his sensors. It was beautiful, in a strange way. Golden hull, smooth curves, lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Yoon So-mi from her station. She was young, only 26, with sharp eyes and quick hands on the controls. They're speaking Korean, sir." Do-hyun raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The voice that filled the command deck was warm and friendly. Too friendly. "Greetings, humans of New Busan. I am Ambassador Trellix, of the Vorathi species. I represent the Galactic Council, an alliance of over 200 species that has governed this region of space for 50,000 years. We come in peace and friendship. We wish to begin integration protocols and welcome humanity into our great family." The bridge crew looked at each other. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. First contact. Proof that they were not alone in the universe. Some of the younger officers smiled with excitement. Do-hyun did not smile. He was 52 years old. His hair was gray at the temples, and deep lines marked his face. He had served in the human navy for 30 years. He had seen things. He had lost things. "Lieutenant Yoon," he said quietly, "open a channel." "Channel open, sir." Do-hyun took a breath. "Ambassador Trellix, this is Captain Park Do-hyun of the United Human Confederacy. Humanity thanks you for your greeting. However, we are not interested in integration. We respectfully ask you to leave our space." Silence. The entire bridge crew stared at him. Lieutenant Yoon's mouth fell open. The ambassador's voice returned, confused. "I apologize, Captain. Perhaps there was a translation error. We are offering you membership in the Galactic Council, access to technology thousands of years ahead of your own, medical advances that could extend your lifespan by centuries, trade routes spanning the galaxy, protection from cosmic threats you cannot imagine. This is a gift beyond measure." "We understand," Do-hyun said. "We are not interested. Please leave." More silence. When Trellix spoke again, the warmth was gone. "Captain, in 50,000 years of Council history, no species has ever refused first contact. Perhaps you do not have the authority to make this decision. We request to speak with your leaders." "I am speaking for my leaders," Do-hyun said. "The answer is no. You have 20 hours to leave human space. This channel is now closed." He cut the transmission. Lieutenant Yoon stood up from her station. "Sir, with respect, what are you doing? This is first contact. This is everything we've dreamed about." Do-hyun turned to face his crew. They were all looking at him with confusion, some with anger. He understood. They were young. They still had hope. "Follow me," he said. He led Yoon to his private office. The door closed behind them. He sat at his desk and pulled up files on his screen. Files that were classified at the highest levels. 17 species, he said. That's how many have been integrated into the Council in the last 1,000 years. Look at this. He showed her the data. Population numbers. Cultural indicators. Language preservation. Technology. Dependence. 14 of these species no longer exist as independent cultures, Do-hyun said. Their languages are dead. Their traditions are museum exhibits. Their people live on council stations, work council jobs, eat council food. They have no identity left. 1. Yoon studied the data. Her excitement faded. 2 species went extinct within a century of integration, Do-hyun continued. Something about the medical treatments didn't work with their biology. The council called it an unfortunate incompatibility. And the 17th? Yoon asked. Do-hyun pulled up the file. It showed images of small, furry creatures in enclosed habitats. Signs in alien languages surrounded the enclosures. The calori, he said. Population at time of contact, 6 billion. Current population, 42,000. They live in what the Council calls a protected sanctuary. The rest of the galaxy calls it a zoo. Yoon sat down heavily. The Council doesn't conquer, Do-hyun said. They don't need to. They make you dependent on them. They give you technology you can't build yourself. Medicine, you can't make yourself. Food, you can't grow yourself. Within 3 generations, you can't survive without them. And then you're not a species anymore. You're a pet. How do you know all this? Yoon asked. Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. 20 years ago, I was stationed on Kepler 7, mining colony, 12,000 people. We started finding alien technology in the asteroid belt. Old stuff, abandoned. We reported it to command, but we also started studying it ourselves, trying to understand it. Quote, his voice grew hard. Someone in the Council noticed. They didn't like that we were learning their secrets, so they sold our location to raiders. Pirates. The colony was destroyed. My wife was there. My son. My daughter. Yoon said nothing. Command investigated, Do-hyun said. They tracked the information leak back to Council sources. But what could we do? We were small. We were weak. So we stayed quiet. We learned. We grew. We built. He stood up and looked out the window at the stars. We didn't crawl out of Earth's gravity well to become someone's exhibit, he said. We didn't cross light years and build 12 colonies just to hand it all over to the first alien who smiled at us. Humanity will rise or fall on its own terms, not theirs. Outside, the golden ship still waited. Its lights pulsed, with a slower rhythm now. Confused. Uncertain. In the command center, the communications panel lit up. The Council ship was trying again. Sir, called an officer. They're requesting another channel. They say they want to discuss the benefits of integration in more detail. Do-hyun returned to the command deck. He stood in front of the main screen, where the golden ship floated against the black of space. No response, he said. Let them wait. For 3 days, the Council ship stayed in orbit around New Busan. Ambassador Trellix sent message after message. Offers of technology. Offers of medicine. Offers of trade. Promises of protection. Warnings about the dangers of isolation. Do-hyun responded to none of them. On the 4th day, the golden ship turned and flew away. Before it entered hyperspace, Trellix sent one final message. It was not addressed to Do-hyun. It was addressed to the Galactic Council. The humans have refused us. They show no fear. They show no interest. I do not understand. In the command center of Orbital Station 7, Lieutenant Yoon watched the ship disappear. She looked at her captain. What happens now? She asked. Do-hyun watched the empty space where the ship had been. Now, he said. They try to figure out what we are, and we prepare for what comes next. He turned and walked off the bridge. The stars burned cold and bright beyond the windows. Humanity had made its choice. There was no going back. The Great Chamber was the largest room in the galaxy. It sat at the heart of the Council homeworld, a planet so old that no one remembered its original name. The chamber was a perfect sphere, 2 kilometers across, with floating platforms for each member species. When fully assembled, it held representatives from over 200 civilizations. Today, every platform was full. High Arbiter Morvax stood at the center, on the Celestine platform. His species had guided the Council for 12,000 years. They were tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes that glowed like small stars. They lived for thousands of years and thought in centuries rather than days. Morvax had seen many crises in his long life. Wars, plagues, natural disasters. But he had never seen anything like this. The humans have refused integration, he announced. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. In 50,000 years of Council history, this has never happened. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. Translators struggled to keep up. "Impossible!" shouted the Kathrani delegate. They had been council members for 6,000 years. No species refuses the council. They must be primitive. Too stupid to understand what they're rejecting. Their technology suggests otherwise, said the Vorathi delegate. Ambassador Trellix stood beside him, still shaken by his experience. Their orbital stations are crude by our standards, but functional. Their ships are slow, but well-designed. They are not primitives. Then they are arrogant, said the Mordock's delegate. The Mordocks were even more warlike than the Kathrani. They think they are better than us. We should teach them their place. Morvax raised a hand for silence. The chamber slowly quieted. We will not resort to threats, he said. That is not the council way. We will send a diplomatic fleet. We will establish a presence in their space and demonstrate the benefits of cooperation. When they see what we offer, they will change their minds. The Kathrani delegate smiled. I will lead this fleet myself. 3 weeks later, 40 Kathrani warships jumped into the new Busan system. Admiral No Taisun was waiting for them. She was young for her rank, only 38 years old. She had short black hair and calm eyes. Her uniform was simple and clean. She had earned her position not through politics, but through skill. 5 years ago, she had defended Proxima Station against a pirate fleet twice her size. She won with half her ships disabled. Now she commanded the Third Fleet. 22 ships, the best humanity had. Admiral, said her censor officer. 40 contacts. Kathrani configuration. They're moving toward the planet. Taisun studied the tactical display. The Kathrani ships were large and impressive. Heavy armor. Powerful weapons. They looked like predators. Open a channel, she said. The Kathrani commander appeared on screen. He was massive, with scales and sharp teeth. I am War Leader Kreth of the Kathrani hegemony. We are here on behalf of the Galactic Council to establish a peaceful presence in this system. You will stand down and allow our observers to— No, Tyson said. Kreth blinked. You are in human space without permission. You were not invited. You will leave immediately. The Kathrani commander laughed. It was a harsh sound. Little human. I have 40 warships. You have 20. Each of my vessels outguns 3 of yours. Do you really think you can stop us? Tayson's expression didn't change. Yes, you are bluffing. Test me. Kreth's eyes narrowed. He studied the human admiral for a long moment. Then, he gave an order in his own language. The Kathrani fleet advanced. Taisun turned to her crew. All ships, battle formation. Target their engines and weapons. Disable, don't destroy. Admiral, said her weapons officer. If we don't aim to kill, we give them an advantage. We're not here to start a war, Taisun said. We're here to end one before it begins. Execute. The Third Fleet moved like a single organism. Human ships were smaller than Kathrani ships, but they were faster. Much faster. They darted between the enemy vessels, firing precise bursts at critical systems. The Kathrani tried to respond. Their weapons were powerful, but slow. Their targeting systems couldn't track the human ships. They fired blast after blast into empty space. Taisun watched the battle from her command chair. Her hands were steady. Her voice was calm. Squadron 2, disable that cruiser's main gun. Squadron 4, take out the flagship's engines. All ships, watch for collateral. We don't want any of their reactors going critical. In 14 minutes, it was over. Every Kathrani ship floated dead in space. Engines cold. Weapons offline. Life support running on emergency power. Not a single vessel destroyed. Not a single human ship lost. War Leader Kreth stared at his darkened bridge in disbelief. His crew looked at him with horror. They had never been defeated. They had never even imagined defeat. The human admiral appeared on his emergency screen. Your ships will be towed to the border, Tysoon said. You will have enough life support to reach Council space. Tell the Council that humanity has no interest in war. But we will defend ourselves. Do not come back. The channel closed. On the Council homeworld, High Arbiter Morvax received the report. He read it 3 times. Certain there was an error. 40 ships disabled in 14 minutes. No human casualties. The Kethrani delegate stormed into his office, demanding revenge. The Mordox delegate called for a full military response. Other delegates sent messages of alarm and confusion. Morvax ignored them all. He sat alone in his chambers, thinking. The Celestines were known for their patience, their wisdom, their ability to see patterns across centuries. Morvax was considered brilliant, even among his own kind. But he could not understand the humans. They did not attack first. They did not pursue the retreating fleet. They did not keep prisoners or demand payment. They simply defended their space and sent the invaders home. No species in Council history had ever shown such restraint. When the Mordox won battles, they took slaves. When the Kethrani won, they took territory. When the Silaxians won, they took resources. The humans took nothing. They wanted nothing from the Council. That was what frightened Morvax most. Back in human space, Admiral Tysoon sent her report to Confederate Command. President Baek Ji-yun read it in her office on Earth. She was 61, with gray hair and thoughtful eyes. She had been a diplomat before she was a politician. She knew how to read people and situations. She read the report twice. Then she called a meeting of her advisors. This will not end here, she told them. The Council has never been refused, and they've never been defeated. They will try again. Diplomacy, threats, force? They'll use whatever they think will work. Then we prepare for war, said General Kwon Hyun-woo, her military commander. We prepare for everything, Baek said. War is the last option. But we need to understand them. We need to know why they do what they do. She looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. Find me someone who can study them, she said. Someone who can tell us what makes the Council work, and what might make it fall apart. Far away, in the Great Chamber, Morvax was thinking the same thing about humanity. The galaxy held its breath. Scholar Han Yuna lived for questions. She was 35 years old, small and quiet, with glasses that were always sliding down her nose. She had spent her entire adult life studying alien cultures from afar. Radio signals, probe data, intercepted communications. She had never met an alien in person, but she knew more about the Council than almost any human alive. When President Baek called her to Earth, Yuna thought she was in trouble. Scholars didn't usually get summoned by presidents. I need you to tell me about the Council, Baek said. They sat in her office, just the two of them. Not their technology or their military. I need to know who they are, why they do what they do. Yuna pushed her glasses up. That's a big question. I have time. So Yuna talked. She talked for 3 hours. She explained the Council's history, its structure, its beliefs. She explained how they saw themselves as guardians of civilization, how they genuinely believed that integration was a gift, how they couldn't understand why anyone would refuse. They're not evil, she said finally. They're not trying to destroy other species. They really think they're helping. In their minds, integration means safety, prosperity, peace. They've never considered that it might also mean losing yourself. Baek leaned back in her chair. So, they won't stop. No. They can't. If humanity succeeds alone, it proves that integration isn't necessary. That challenges everything they believe, everything they've built for 50,000 years. Baek was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I want you to keep studying them, and I want you to find allies. There must be species in the Council who have doubts, who remember what they lost. Find them. Yuna nodded and left. She had no idea how she was going to do what the president asked. But she would try. On the council homeworld, another person was asking questions. Speaker Velith of the Dralith was a minor official in a minor species. The Dralith had been integrated for 800 years. They were small, quiet, and completely unremarkable. They worked in administration, in maintenance, in food service. No one paid attention to them. But Velith had been thinking. It started when he heard about the humans, a species that said no to the council, a species that wanted to stay itself. The idea was shocking. It was ridiculous. And yet, Velith could not stop thinking about it. He started asking questions. Simple questions at first. What were the Dralith like before integration? What did they believe? What did they create? No one knew. He went to the archives. The council kept records of every species, going back thousands of years. The Dralith files were extensive. Population statistics, biological data, industrial capacity at time of contact. But there was nothing about culture, nothing about art, nothing about beliefs or dreams or stories. Velith searched for days. He found records of the Dralith homeworld, now called Administrative Sector 7. He found lists of Dralith contributions to council infrastructure. He found medical records and work assignments and housing allocations. He could not find a single Dralith song. Finally, he went to see High Arbiter Morvax. It was an insane thing to do. A minor speaker meeting with the leader of the Celestines. But Velith was desperate. To his surprise, Morvax agreed to see him. The Arbiter's chambers were vast and quiet. Morvax sat in a chair that seemed to float in midair. His silver skin glowed in the soft light. "You have questions," Morvax said. It was not a question. "Yes," Velith said. His voice trembled slightly. "I want to know what my people were." Before integration, Morvax tilted his head. "You are Dralith. You have always been Dralith." But what does that mean?" Velith pressed. "What did we believe? What did we create? What made us?" "Us." Morvax was quiet. Then he accessed the archives through his neural link. He searched for several minutes. "The records appear to be incomplete," he said finally. "They're not incomplete," Velith said. "They're empty. We became council members, and we stopped being Dralith." The words hung in the air. Morvax stared at the small alien in front of him. In 12,000 years, no one had ever said such a thing to him. "That is not possible," Morvax said. But his voice was uncertain. "Integration preserves species. It protects them. It allows them to flourish." "Does it?" Velith asked. "I don't know any Dralith stories. I don't know any Dralith songs. I don't know what we believed or what we dreamed. I only know what the council tells me to do." "Is that flourishing?" Morvax had no answer. Velith left the chambers. He walked through the corridors of the council capital, past hundreds of species from hundreds of worlds. He wondered how many of them were like him, how many had forgotten who they were. He decided to find out. Back in human space, Dr. Shin Juwon was doing similar work. Juwon was a xenobiologist, 42 years old, with a gentle manner and a curious mind. Scholar Yuna had recruited him to help study council species. He was supposed to analyze their biology, their chemistry, their physical needs. Instead, he found himself studying their silence. He intercepted communications from minor council species that had been integrated for centuries. He expected to find cultures, traditions, unique perspectives. He found almost nothing. The communications were all the same. Work schedules, resource allocations, medical reports. There was no art, no philosophy, no individuality. It was as if entire civilizations had been reduced to their functions. Then, he found Velith's signal. The Dralith speaker was sending messages into empty space. Not communications, just broadcasts. He was reciting something. It took Juwon a week to realize what it was. Velith was trying to remember a story from Draleth folklore. He only knew fragments. He was piecing them together, word by word, broadcasting each version, in hopes that someone out there might know the rest. Yuvon contacted him. At first, Velith was terrified. A human had found him. The enemy had found him. He would be punished, executed, erased. But Juwon just asked about the story. They talked for hours. Juwon told Velith about human history, about the wars and the famines and the plagues and the recoveries, about the thousands of cultures on Earth, each one different, each one preserved across millennia. Velith told Juwon about the Draleth, about the fragments of folklore that only the oldest generation still remembered. About a time when his people looked at the stars and saw something other than shipping lanes. "We were poets once," Velith said. His voice was soft with wonder. "We had 17 words for starlight. I only know 3 now." "Tell me," Juwon said. Velith told him. Galeth was the light of home stars. Morath was the light of distant suns. And Venkai was the light of stars you would never reach but dreamed of anyway. Juwon listened. And he understood, finally, what the council really did. They didn't destroy cultures. They didn't burn books or silence songs. They just made those things unnecessary. They provided everything a species needed to survive, and in doing so, they took away everything a species needed to be alive. He reported his findings to Scholar Yuna. She reported to President Bake. "We have allies," Yuna said. "They're small, and they're scared. But they exist. There are people in the council who remember what they lost, who want it back." Bake nodded slowly. "Then we give them hope. We show them that there's another way." Far away, in the great chamber, High Arbiter Morvax sat alone. He was thinking about Velith's words, about empty archives and forgotten songs. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he didn't recognize. It took him a long time to identify the feeling. It was doubt. The council was falling apart. 1 year had passed since first contact. 1 year of confusion, anger, and fear. The great chamber met more frequently now, and each session was louder than the last. The hardliner faction wanted war. The Mordock's hegemony led them, with the Kathrani and the Silaxians and half a dozen other warrior species at their side. They believed the humans were a threat, an insult, a disease that would spread rebellion throughout the galaxy if left unchecked. The moderate faction wanted patience. They believed the humans would eventually see reason. They just needed time. More diplomacy. More demonstrations of council superiority. And then there was the third faction. Small, quiet, and growing. They had no name. They held no official meetings, but they talked among themselves in private channels and encrypted messages. They were the ones who had started asking questions. The ones who had started to remember. High Arbiter Morvax knew about all 3 factions. He watched them pull the council in different directions. For the first time in 12,000 years, he did not know what to do. The Mordock's delegate came to his chambers. His name was Grekar, and he was huge even by Mordock standards. His scales were dark red, and his eyes were cold. "The time for patience is over," Grekar said. "We have assembled a coalition fleet. 600 ships from 12 species. We will blockade human space. We will cut off their expansion. We will starve them into submission." Morvax kept his face calm. "That is an act of war. It is a demonstration of strength. They must learn that they cannot defy the council. And if they fight back?" Grekar smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Then we will destroy them, and the galaxy will see what happens to those who refuse us." He left without waiting for a response. Morvax sat in his chambers and thought. 600 ships. That was enough to crush the humans if they fought directly. But the humans had not fought directly before. They had disabled the Kethrani fleet without losing a single vessel. What would they do against 600 ships? He did not know. And that frightened him. In human space, General Quan Hyunwoo received the intelligence reports. He read them in his office on Mars, surrounded by maps and battle plans. He was 60 years old, with a weathered face and tired eyes. He had spent most of his career hoping he would never fight a real war. Now war was coming. He took the reports to President Baek. They met in her office on Earth, along with Admiral No and the rest of the military council. 600 ships, Quan said. We have 300. We can win, but it will cost us. Heavy casualties on both sides. How heavy? Baek asked. Half our fleet. Maybe more. And we'll have to destroy them, not disable. There are too many to show mercy. Baek was quiet. She looked out the window at the city below. Millions of people going about their lives. They didn't know that their future was being decided in this room. Is there another option? She asked. Quan hesitated. We could surrender. That's not an option. Then we could talk. This came from Scholar Yuna, who was attending the meeting as an advisor. Not to the whole council. To someone specific. Someone who might listen. Number 1. Baek looked at her. Morvax. The room fell silent. Admiral No shook her head. The High Arbiter? He's the leader of the council. He's the reason this is happening. Cool. He's the reason it hasn't happened sooner. Yuna said. I've been studying him. He's the one who stopped the Kethrani from attacking immediately. He's the one who pushed for diplomacy. And he's been meeting with Velith, the Dralith speaker who's been asking questions about his culture. Baek leaned forward. How do you know this? Dr. Shin has been in contact with Velith. Velith told him about the meeting. He said, Morvax seemed uncertain, confused, like he was seeing something for the first time. Baek thought about this. It was a risk. A huge risk. But it might be their only chance to stop the war before it started. Contact him, she said. Through Velith's channel. Tell him I want to meet. Just the two of us. Neutral space. No guards, no weapons. Just a conversation. Admiral No stood up. Madam President, I must object. If this is a trap, then humanity loses its leader, Baek said calmly. But if it works, we might save millions of lives. Ours and theirs. She looked at Yuna. Send the message. 3 days later, Baek's shuttle landed on a dead moon in unclaimed space. It was a small world, airless and gray. She walked across the surface in her pressure suit, alone. Morvax was waiting for her. He stood in a bubble of energy that served as his atmosphere. His silver skin glowed faintly in the starlight. Up close, he was taller than she expected. His eyes were like tiny galaxies. You came alone, he said. His voice reached her, through her suit's communicator. So did you. I gave my word. So did I. They stood facing each other. Two leaders. Two civilizations. The future of the galaxy, in the space between them. Why did you come? Morvax asked. You refused our diplomats. You defeated our fleet. You ignored our messages. And yet, you asked for this meeting. Why? Baek looked at him. Because I want to understand you, and I want you to understand us. I have studied humanity for a year. I do not understand you. That's because you're looking at us through council eyes. You see a species that refuses help. We see something different. What do you see? A trap. Morvax tilted his head. Integration is not a trap. It is salvation. Then let me ask you something, Baek said. In your entire history, has any species ever left the council? Silence. The stars burned overhead. No, Morvax said finally. Why would they? That's my point. A door that only opens one way isn't a door. It's a cage. Morvax started to respond. Then stopped. He thought of Velith. The empty archives. The 17 words for starlight. reduced to 3. We don't force anyone to join, he said. But his voice was less certain now. You don't have to. You make them need you. You give them technology they can't build, medicine they can't make, food they can't grow. Within 3 generations, they can't survive without you. And once they need you that much, they stop being themselves. They become functions, parts of your machine. Morvax was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft. I have lived for 12,000 years. I have welcomed hundreds of species into the council. I believed I was helping them. 1-3. Maybe you were, Bake said. In some ways. But help that takes away freedom isn't really help. It's control. Even if you don't mean it that way. Then what do you want? Morvax asked. If not integration? What? Trade, Bake said. Exchange. Partnership. We share what we know, and you share what you know. We work together when it benefits both of us. But at the end of every deal, either side can walk away. No dependence. No absorption. Just cooperation between equals. The council does not work that way. Then maybe the council needs to change. Before Morvax could respond, both their communicators crackled. The coalition fleet had arrived in human space. The war had begun. The Battle of the Rimward Reach would be remembered for 1,000 years. 600 council ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory. They spread across the void like a wall of metal and fire. Mordok's dreadnoughts, Kethrani cruisers, Silaxian gunships, 12 species united by anger and pride. General Quan Hyunwoo watched them come. He stood on the bridge of the flagship Times Soul's Pride Asterisk, surrounded by his command staff. 200 human ships waited behind him. They were outnumbered 3-1. All ships, he said quietly. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. We are not fighting to conquer. We are fighting to survive. Admiral No commanded the main battle group. Commander Cha Eun-ji led the Marine boarding parties. Captain Park Do-hyun had come out of orbital defense to command a strike squadron. The coalition fleet advanced. Their weapons powered up. Their shields glowed with energy. The humans did not wait for them. Quan's fleet split into 6 groups and hit the enemy from all sides at once. They were faster, more maneuverable. They darted through the council formation like wolves among cattle. Target engines and weapons, Quan ordered. Disable, don't destroy. Not corpses. It was a strange order for a battle. The coalition commanders didn't understand it. They expected the humans to fight like every other species with maximum force, maximum destruction. Instead, the human ships seemed almost gentle. Precise shots to engines. Careful bursts to weapon systems. Shields disabled, but hulls intact. The coalition ships started going dark. One by one, then by the dozen. Dead in space, but still alive inside. Commander Cha Eun-ji led her Marines onto the disabled ships. They wore heavy armor and carried rifles that fired stun rounds. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, neutralizing crews without killing them. The Mordok soldiers fought back hard. They were warriors, proud and fierce. But the human Marines were better trained and better equipped. Ship after ship fell silent. 9 hours after it began, the battle was over. 400 coalition ships floated dead in space. The other 200 had retreated to hyperspace. Human losses: 12 ships destroyed, 31 damaged. Less than 300 dead. It was the most one-sided victory in Council history. Grekar, the Mordok's delegate, was captured on his flagship. His arms were bound and his weapons were gone. Human Marines led him to a holding area, along with hundreds of other prisoners. He expected torture. He expected execution. He expected slavery, like the Mordoks would have given. Instead, a young human approached him. The human was small, with gentle hands and a medical kit. "I'm Corporal Lim Dong-hae," the human said. "You have a wound on your arm. Let me treat it." Grekar stared at him. "Why?" "Because you're hurt. I am your enemy. I came to destroy you." Dong-hae cleaned the wound and applied a bandage. His movements were careful and professional. "You were following orders," he said. Grekar didn't understand. In Mordok's culture, prisoners were leverage. They were bargaining chips at best, slaves at worst. They were not cared for. "What will you do with us?" he asked. "We'll keep you comfortable until the war ends. Then we'll send you home." "Home?" "Yes. Home. To your families. Your lives." Dong-hae finished with the bandage and stood. "We don't want to keep you. We just want to be left alone." He moved on to the next patient. Grekar sat in the holding area and thought. He had lived for 200 years. He had fought in 30 battles. He had killed more enemies than he could count. No one had ever treated his wounds after defeating him. On the Council homeworld, news of the battle spread like fire. The defeat was bad enough, but the treatment of prisoners was something else entirely. Videos and reports came from the captured ships, stories of human medics treating wounds, of human guards sharing their food, of translators explaining that everyone would be returned safely. The hardliner faction collapsed. Species that had supported the war were horrified. They had sent a fleet to subjugate, and the humans had responded with mercy. It made no sense. It changed everything. High Arbiter Morvax stood in the Great Chamber. For the first time in 12,000 years, he spoke against Council policy. "We have ruled this galaxy by making ourselves necessary," he said. His voice was heavy with age and doubt. "We called it guidance. We called it protection. We believed we were helping." He paused. The chamber was silent. "But the humans have shown us another way. They fight, but they do not hate. They refuse us, but they do not fear us. They defeat us. And then, they heal our wounds." He looked at the assembly. Hundreds of species, thousands of years of history, all of it built on a belief that was starting to crack. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should ask ourselves, not what the humans lack, but what we have lost." The chamber erupted. Some cheered, some shouted in anger, but everyone listened. It took 6 months to negotiate the treaty. President Bayek and High Arbiter Morvax led the talks. They met on that same dead moon. Again and again. They argued. They disagreed. Sometimes, they shouted. But they kept talking. The Treaty of the Rimward Reach was not integration. It was partnership. Technology was shared with species that wanted it but not forced on anyone. Council medical advances helped human colonies. But humans maintained their own research programs. Trade routes opened between human space and Council space, but either side could close them at any time. It was messy. It was complicated. It was nothing like the clean efficiency of integration. But it was free. 5 years later, the galaxy was different. The Dralith had begun a cultural revival. Velith was now an ambassador, traveling between Council space and human space. He taught Dralith children the 17 words for starlight. He collected stories from the oldest generation and preserved them in new archives. Scholar Han Yuna led the first exchange program. Council students came to human universities. Human students went to Council academies. They learned from each other. They argued with each other. They became friends. Dr. Shin Juan continued his research. He studied Council species. But now he studied their cultures, not just their biology. He helped them remember what they had forgotten. One species at a time, Commander Cha Unji retired from the Marines and became a diplomat. She was good at it. She had learned how to fight without hating, and that made her perfect for building peace. Corporal Lim Dong-hae went back to medical school. He specialized in xenobiology. He wanted to heal everyone, regardless of species. Captain Park Do-hyun stayed in the Navy. He was too old, and too stubborn to change. But sometimes, when he looked at the stars, he smiled. His family was gone, but their dream was alive. Humanity was free. Admiral Note soon became the commander of all human military forces. She was still young, still calm, still brilliant. She hoped she would never have to fight another battle, but if she did, she would win. General Kwon Hyun-woo retired to a small house on Earth. He grew vegetables and watched the clouds. He had spent his whole life preparing for war. Now, he was learning how to live without it. President Baek Ji-yeon and High Arbiter Morvax met once a year. They were old now, Baek, in human years. Morvax, even in Celestine terms. They still argued. They still disagreed. But every meeting ended the same way. Same time next year? Baek would ask. Same time next year. Morvax would reply. And they would smile. The galaxy was not united. It was not perfect. It probably never would be. There were still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still species that distrusted each other. But for the first time in 50,000 years, every species had a choice. They could integrate with the Council if they wanted. They could partner with the humans if they preferred. They could go their own way if they chose. They were free. And that, in the end, was all humanity had ever asked for. Not to be the strongest. Not to be the richest. Not to rule the galaxy, or bend it to their will. Just to be themselves, just to be free. High above Earth, on Orbital Station 7, Lieutenant Yoon Somi, now Captain Yoon, looked out at the stars. She thought about that day, 6 years ago, when a golden ship appeared on her sensors, and everything changed. She thought about Captain Do-hyun's words. We didn't crawl out of Earth's gravity well to become someone's exhibit. She thought about what they had built instead. A future. A choice. A galaxy where being different wasn't a disease to be cured. The stars burned cold and bright, and humanity kept reaching for them.